Thursday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app to do your listening. And that fine piece of technology is sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you, and I'd love to get your thoughts at 719-247-1313. You can call or text into that show using that number. You will hear from Switchbacks midfielder Jonas Fieldberg during this program. I'll also be giving away tickets to see the Switchbacks on Saturday along with that. And Jessica Mendoza will be my guest from KKTV 11 to discuss what I'm about to discuss right now, which is the Broncos' joint practice with the Arizona Cardinals. Now, this is a little bit of a good news, bad news situation if you're a Broncos fan. Let's start with the good news. Here's Sean Payton.
It's probably my 12th joint practice, but one of the better ones. There's going to be, like I said a week ago, a lot of tape, a lot of good things, a lot of things we got to clean up. And, but, you know, that's how you get better. So overall, I was pleased with it. I know Jonathan was as well.
The best joint practice ever was today up in Denver. And with the importance of joint practice going up in recent years, that is good news if you are a Broncos fan. That in something that you can argue may be more important than a preseason game, it went really well. And there wasn't the mixed bag of results. And we'll confirm this with Jessica next hour. But the reports coming out of Broncos camp were that this was a definite win for the Denver Broncos on both sides of the football. In fact, Bo Nix was even tossing no-look passes at certain points. And that's not coming from a media member. That's coming from one of the Arizona Cardinals players. So it appears that unlike the San Francisco joint practice, which it seemed to be more that the defense had a great day, the offense had their moments, today it certainly seems like the Denver Broncos got the better of the Arizona Cardinals, which is not totally surprising. I mean, if you want this to be some kind of emblematic of the Denver Broncos and who they are as a football team, San Francisco, good team. Broncos held their own, but it was mostly the defense that looked to be better than their counterparts. Arizona shouldn't be surprised that both sides of the football looked better than their counterparts with the Cardinals. Because perception going into the year, San Francisco, Denver, kind of the same level, maybe. I think San Francisco will win more games, but that's more of a byproduct of, the schedule, their conference, their division, all that kind of stuff. But about the same level as the Denver Broncos. Arizona, I think Denver's better than them. And the Bo Nix of it all as well. Bo Nix having a day against a defense that was middle of the road when it comes to getting pressure on quarterbacks last year. So if you look at Bo Nix, because still his development is the biggest story of the Denver Broncos this season, better defense, better pass rushers. On San Francisco, Bo Nix struggles a little bit. Not really the case with the Arizona Cardinals. Bo Nix has himself a day. And therein lies one of my big questions with Bo Nix. Going up against really good to elite defenses that create a lot of pressure, how is he going to perform? Because those kind of teams gave him trouble last year. So that's the main growth area. And I've been talking about it since the San Francisco game. I've been talking about this all week. Bo Nix making plays with his arm under pressure. That's the main area where I say if Bo Nix is going to be better in year 2 than year 1, that's the area where he has to show the most growth in. But going up against Arizona's defense, Bo Nix, by all accounts, and we'll confirm this with Jessica Mendoza a little bit later, had himself a day. All this, good news. Here's the bad news, also delivered by Sean Payton.
Basically, there's going to be a group in the first half and a group in the second half, but your front line, O-line, D-line, QB, corner, I'm going to sit those guys only because of the uniqueness of 2 of these in a week's time frame.
The bad news is no Bo Nix, no Pat Surtain, no Mike McGlinchey, no go on down the list based on the position groups that he mentioned. Your favorite Denver Broncos will not be in action Saturday against the Arizona Cardinals. 2 joint practices in 7 days' time. Sean Payton feels like plus the preseason game in San Francisco. That's all the work they need. Now, he did say that the game in New Orleans, his ones will play. But this weekend, don't expect the stars to be out, which is, of course, disappointing because you may be listening as a ticket holder to the game. But certainly you could see the argument from Sean Payton. It's rare that they do multiple joint practices. They did them in 7 days' time, plus a preseason game. And I'll add one more. The Broncos didn't look very good in the preseason game. Not that Sean Payton is protecting the outlook on his team. That's not what I'm saying. But could, in his mind, he feel like the team would be set up for another perhaps lackluster performance on Saturday, given that since the San Francisco game, they've added another joint practice? I think it's reasonable to think that the ones need a break. And if they didn't look especially great against San Francisco, and you add another joint practice before the next preseason game, in a world where they actually do play that preseason game, I think that the expectation or my thought would be, I don't know that the first teamers are going to look a ton better. So this is, you call it load management or whatever you want. It makes sense. It does. As disappointing as it is, especially since the Broncos ones left so much to be desired against San Francisco. You want to see him out there. You want to see him respond. It's a home game, all of that kind of stuff. But you look at the amount of work that this team has put in before any of this counts, you can see where Sean Payton is coming from. And then the final week of preseason, there will be no joint practice, and the Denver Broncos ones will play. So, again, good news, bad news situation. Broncos got in their work and look good doing it today, but they will not be putting any work in, or at least the main Broncos won't be putting any work in on Saturday. So, what do you do with that game on Saturday? As if it wasn't already mainly there in terms of the focus, it even is more so now. It's that running back room. That is the storyline. Because the roster bubble will come more into focus in the last preseason game. You're eliminating the will the ones look better, specifically will Bo Nix look better than he did against San Francisco. Now it's just about that running back room. And that's a reason to watch all 4 quarters. Now, RJ Harvey's a little bit on the fence. Do we see RJ Harvey? I think it definitely says J.K. Dobbins, don't expect to see him. But could you still see a little RJ Harvey on Saturday? Potentially. But the real battle here is between Jaleel McLaughlin, Audric Estime, Blake Watson, and Tyler Bidet. 2 of those 4 guys are going to be on the Broncos 53-man roster, and 2 most likely are not going to be. And you could also say that one of those 4 will be a contributor fairly regularly to the Denver Broncos' success this season. Right? Can't get to 4, but 3 running backs, as Sean Payne has talked about. Not everybody is going to get equal reps. It's not really running back, share the wealth. But you will see a 3rd running back on occasion this upcoming season. The 4th guy there if an injury happens or in a very specialized role. So there's the consequence of Saturday. There's the thing to watch. There's no list. It's one thing. It is those 4 running backs. How does Sean Payton divvy up those reps? Do we see now more Audric Estime early than we saw against San Francisco? Does he kind of flip that rotation and it's more Blake Watson and Audric Estime, kind of thunder lightning type thing, and then Bidet and Jaleel McLaughlin later? I'm sure Sean Payton will be asked that in the next 48 hours or so. But upon hearing no Bo Nix, no star Denver Broncos players, what am I going to watch on Saturday? There it is, the running backs. You can put, not that other things won't pop up, but you can put that to the side because, again, that roster bubble will get more into focus the last preseason game. But that's what it's going to be. 719-247-1313 is the number if you'd like to interact with the show or you'd like to win Switchbacks tickets, because I will be giving those away next, along with my conversation with Switchbacks winger Jonas Fjellberg, who had himself a day as the Switchbacks continue to stack days and continue their winning ways. Congratulations to Miguel, who won the 4-pack of tickets to Saturday night's Switchbacks match against Orange County SC. Tickets, a few, still available at switchbacksfc.com. Nuggets schedule is out. Please allow me to go game by game. At Golden State, win. No, just kidding. We don't do that with schedules that are longer than football schedules. But the Nuggets schedule is out, and I think the best way to kind of look at this is each month, what is the game that I'm most interested in, and you can do the same exercise as well. Because we know that there are many games on an NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball schedule that don't turn out to be super consequential, as much as we feel like is the case with the NFL or college football. But I found one, you at least got one each month that I think is highly anticipated. And you look no further in October than the opener. At Golden State, it will be an 8 o'clock tip-off on ESPN. That's your first opportunity to see the somewhat new-look Denver Nuggets with Cam Johnson and Tim Hardaway and that new guy that's not really new, and Bruce Brown, and yes, Jonas Valanciunas. So that's your first chance to see the team on TV. Their opener is 2 days later. That's also worth noting. And the opponent not quite as scintillating as Golden State. It will be Phoenix. But that is the home opener 2 nights later. But to me, opening night, there's something about it, even though this is a very long season. Do very much look forward to opening night. And the Nuggets have some intrigue, certainly, with this team. And don't forget their head coach is not new. He had some time on the job. But at Golden State, Thursday, October 23rd, that's when it gets started. In November, the game that I circled was a Friday night game in Houston. And that is because the interest level with Kevin Durant, I know Kevin Durant is not a new Nuggets foe, but him being in Houston, much of the debate this offseason has been, okay, now who's the biggest threat to Oklahoma City in the West? And much of the debate has been between Denver and Houston. I like to rope in Minnesota, especially since if the Nuggets go up against Minnesota in the playoffs, be a little bit worried about that one. So I think Minnesota deserves to be in that conversation, but much of the conversation nationally has been between who you got, Denver or Houston. And that's the first opportunity for the Denver Nuggets to stake their claim to that status Friday, November 24th, November 21st at Houston. And that will be on Amazon Prime. Let's also not forget that there are new places to watch these games. That game will be on Amazon Prime in November. In December, this one's easy. It's the nightcap on Christmas. It's a home game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that the Denver Nuggets have not beaten in what feels like 100 years. And that's going to be one of the big storylines this year with the Denver Nuggets. Have they put their issues with the Timberwolves behind them? And with Minnesota, it hasn't been about Minnesota being a demonstrably better team than the Denver Nuggets. Right? The Nuggets still have the best player in that game. And then you would go to Anthony Edwards, and if he's right, the third guy on that list would be Jamal Murray. But it's just the way that Minnesota plays. And I read Mike Singer's book about Nikola Jokic. And it's funny, there's a part in there, and it's just kind of a throwaway line. But Tim Connolly actually denies the idea that he brought in Rudy Gobert because of Nikola Jokic. I don't believe him. Either he's lying or it was certainly looked at as an added bonus to get Rudy Gobert to pair with Karl Anthony Towns. But the issue with Minnesota is not necessarily that overall they're a better team, but they're a bad matchup. And the Nuggets, sometime between now and the start of the playoffs, have got to remedy that. They've got to show that that is done with. And maybe the key to that is Cam Johnson. You know, you look at his playing style, he is very similar to Michael Porter in many ways. But with him being more attack-minded and more of a cutter, perhaps, than Michael Porter was, maybe that's what can put the Nuggets over the top against Minnesota. Maybe that fit with Cam Johnson, maybe an improved bench, can tip the scales the other way. But the Nuggets are going to have to show at some point. I'm not taking the Nuggets to beat the Wolves in a 7-game series if the Nuggets go 0 during the regular season against them. And that will be obviously a big stage Christmas night, and that will be on ABC at 8:30 on December 25th. Then we move to the month of January, and that will allow us to thank Michael Porter for his service, because on January 29th, the Brooklyn Nets will be visiting Denver, and this is really one of the first times in a while where the Nuggets will be honoring a player of some significance. They've kept this core together for a lot of years, and obviously they've never experienced a championship. So Michael Porter visiting on January 29th, that will be an interesting night. And then you'll have Michael Porter against his former team, Cam Johnson against his former team as well. Then a short turnaround, February 1. How about this? February 1st is the first time the Denver Nuggets will play the Oklahoma City Thunder. They will play 4 times in the last 2.5 months, which is odd. And at first blush, I kind of hated that. But now it's like all 4 of those games might be incredibly consequential. If you put one of those games in November, you have the storyline of those two teams playing a 7-game series in the playoffs, and whether the Nuggets are good enough to now topple OKC. But they're not playing for anything at that stage. Now, in February, and 3 more times thereafter, between February 1 and April 10th, these might be games that decide the division, which would decide which one gets an automatic top 4 seed and home court. But on February 1st, certainly the biggest storyline will be these two teams met in a 7-game series. Are the Nuggets the biggest threat to OKC getting back to the NBA Finals? That game will be on NBC at 7:30 that night. Then in March, there are actually 2 games. But the one I'll go with is March 5th. They will play the Lakers at home at 8 o'clock. And all across the league, everyone is on LeBron watch. We've been doing this for a couple years, but it could be LeBron's last visit to Ball Arena. And you have the rivalry between the Lakers and the Nuggets, and you have Luka involved in all of this. So that would be the game I go with. But the reason why I threw out 2, March 6th, the very next night, the Denver Nuggets host the New York Knicks. Interesting matchup, potential finals matchup, I think. But I look at those 2 games and I say, wouldn't one of those 2 nights be a perfect night to bury the hatchet with one of their former stars. Carmelo Anthony is going into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame this year. That would normally warrant some kind of a night. And I would imagine, I haven't seen the Knicks plans. I bet you the Knicks do one. Now, we know why the Knicks certainly would do one and why the Nuggets may not do one. But how about this? How about the Denver Nuggets, having seen March 5th against the Lakers would be good, even better, one night later against the New York Knicks. It could be Carmelo Anthony night with the two franchises that he will be most linked to when he is inducted in the Hall of Fame. And you could put all of this pettiness, all of this antagonistic behavior, all of this misremembering what Carmelo Anthony did for the Denver Nuggets, and you can put this behind you, and you can honor somebody who altered the trajectory of this franchise. I think it would be a phenomenal idea. But here's the other half of the equation. Part of the reason why the Knicks are definitely going to do one of these, and the Nuggets may not, is because Carmelo Anthony has embraced the New York Knicks more than he has embraced the Denver Nuggets. This is not the Nuggets putting aside whatever issues they have with Carmelo and extending the olive branch. This is a two-way street. You know I am a defender of Carmelo Anthony's legacy in Denver. But I have to point out that Carmelo Anthony has not made it a point to embrace the Nuggets part of his legacy, and also, has Carmelo Anthony gone to a Nuggets game since he's retired? I don't think he has. So this is on both parties. Whatever ill will is within the Nuggets organization, whatever ill will is with Carmelo Anthony, figure it out. Both of you meant too much to one another for this to just go on in perpetuity. And I know one of Carmelo Anthony's hopes when he has been asked is, I would like to see my banner or my jersey raised to the rafters. Do it. Do it. The Broncos have number 18 for Frank Tripucka and Peyton Manning. I don't understand this notion that there can only, like the Highlander, there can only be one number 15, one player recognized as why the number 15 is retired. Doesn't have to be that way. You can put Carmelo Anthony up in the rafters, and you can also say the guy who has the number now can continue to wear it. And when Nikola Jokic is done, they will also put a banner with his number up there, and it will be right next to Carmelo Anthony. And there will be no problems. I don't understand why that would be a problem for anyone. Carmelo Anthony accomplished just as much as any of those other legends who are in the rafters. And the only reason he's not up there now is because of the way things ended between the two parties. And I understand that. Not saying that they had to immediately embrace Carmelo and immediately retire his number, but how much time has passed? Carmelo Anthony's retired. The Nuggets have rebuilt, moved on, won a championship. Carmelo Anthony deserves to be honored by the Denver Nuggets, even by putting a banner like Dan Issel has and Byron Beck and Dikembe Mutombo, all those guys. He deserves to have his name up there. And he can have all of that. But he has to also come to the table with the Denver Nuggets and say, you know what? I'm not saying he has to say he regrets the way things ended. But I think what you have not gotten from Carmelo Anthony is just I loved my time here. And it was an important part of my career, and it's part of what made me who I am. I grew up there. Remember how immature Carmelo Anthony was? When he first came into the league, as talented as he was, he grew up as a player and as a man in Denver. And he just has not talked about that in the way you see so many other stars do. And maybe, we joke sometimes about how Peyton Manning's more a Bronco than a Colt. It's fine if Carmelo Anthony wants to embrace more of his New York Knicks tenure. But Peyton Manning's not shoving aside what he did in Indianapolis, nor should Carmelo Anthony do that with Denver. And if the Nuggets extend the invitation, Carmelo Anthony accepts and says the things that he should be saying going into a ceremony like that, then I think the fans can also start to kind of move past some of the animosity. And I think it would be it may be the highlight of the Nuggets regular season. That all of this stuff is put behind everyone. And Carmelo Anthony addresses the fans and says, thank you for your support. I loved my time in Denver. And then he can get his banner with his jersey on it up in the rafters. I'm more interested in the Laker game on the 5th. So I'm trying to kill two birds with one stone, but it does seem like March 6th, the night after with the Knicks in town, would be the better night to do it. We'll see if they will, but I think it's a pretty good idea. And then the last one in April, got to get some Jokic versus Wemby on the list. No more Jokic versus Embiid. That's done. Nuggets do play Philadelphia. We're not worried about that. Wemby, Saturday, April 4th, 1 o'clock on Amazon Prime. Or you can go to Ball Arena and watch Wemby and Jokic. I think the Spurs are going to be a playoff team this year. And I think it will be a budding rivalry between Jokic and Victor Wembanyama. Also, when probably playoff seeding is on the line. Probably be a consequential game as well. So that's a look. Some other tidbits. Nuggets have a 7-game road trip. Right after that, I meant to mention it after the Minnesota game on Christmas. They go on a 7-game road trip after that. That's not ideal, nor is the fact that they are tied for the most back-to-backs in the league with 16. It's no way to treat a 3-time MVP. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts. Would now be a great time for everyone to come together and let bygones be bygones and honor Carmelo Anthony. And Carmelo Anthony honoring his tenure with the Denver Nuggets. Take your thoughts on that. Coming up next, Sean Payton tells you where you can stick your idea of a sophomore slump for his quarterback.
basically irresistible to people for the same reason he can pretty much only work at a carnival. He has nothing to prove or disprove about himself or to himself. He has no shame.
Here's your host, Ryan Kaufman.
Welcome in hour 2 on this Thursday. Appreciate you watching the show on our social media platforms at XTRA Sports 1300. Coming up in our next segment, if you are watching online, you will notice that we're entering the 21st century. Jessica Mendoza will join me. Usually she joins by phone. No. Going to do the video chat thing. And that you'll be able to see that on our live stream. So that's coming up. Yeah, I know. I may be the last talk show to actually utilize this technology. Progress is slow sometimes, right? 719-247-1313 is the number if you want to jump in here with your thoughts. Tom has, when it comes to the honoring of Carmelo Anthony, and that's a question that has arisen in the last segment, I think that this year with Carmelo going into the Hall of Fame, with the Nuggets hosting the New York Knicks, as they do every year, but on a Friday night, get good attendance, honor him, but also have him do the media rounds and talk about what Denver has meant to him, because that's the part of the bargain he has not held up. Sometimes you wouldn't even know that Carmelo Anthony played for the Nuggets. If he wants to be honored, which he has intimated he does, he's got to do a little bit too. And I think it's the perfect time for that to happen. And then the fan base can heal and celebrate what this guy meant to the organization. Tom, not on board. Says Carmelo Anthony night is like LeBron Day. No, it is not. Because LeBron never played for the Denver Nuggets. But I get what you're saying. You think I am proposing honoring an enemy, an antagonist in Denver Nuggets history. And that's why I say Carmelo Anthony needs to show he's not an antagonist anymore. And maybe him going into the Hall of Fame, realizing that his tenure in Denver weighed more heavily towards his Hall of Fame induction than his Knicks tenure. I mean, if you really think about it, when you show Carmelo Anthony's accomplishments as an NBA player, there are more Nuggets things on there than any other team. This is not bending the knee to Carmelo Anthony. This is saying, Carmelo Anthony, you got to step up too. You got to reach across the aisle and you got to say, you know what? Yeah. You don't even have to mention how it ended. You don't have to make amends for that, but just like come out and show that you appreciate the role that the city of Denver, the Nuggets organization, played in now your Hall of Fame career. That shouldn't be that hard. But I do think the first step the Nuggets got to offer it to him. Tom's not on board. You can give your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Sean Payton every once in a while has these, because Sean Payton kind of every once in a while does what I do. He'll seize on a topic and he'll opine on it. And today was actually a very good subject to opine on. He was asked about the experience of Bo Nix in year one, perhaps preventing a sophomore slump. Here's Sean Payton. Don't mind if I do, Sean Payton. Now, I do have to say off the top, looking at the numbers of first-round quarterbacks over the last decade, Sean Payton is not wrong. The numbers will tell you overall that quarterbacks going into year 2 do improve in a lot of different areas. So in the macro, he's actually right. But to say that quarterbacks who experience the sophomore slump is like trying to find Bigfoot, no, that's not true. I'll give you 3 examples of quarterbacks who, in many metrics, went down from their rookie year to their second year just in the last 10 years. Kenny Pickett, Mac Jones, and CJ Stroud. All 3 of them basically fell across the board in their performance from year 1 to year 2. There are 2 other quarterbacks who did not do either, didn't slump, and didn't do this climb that Sean Payton says exists more for second-year quarterbacks. Justin Herbert and Jameis Winston. Negligible difference one way or another between their rookie year performance and their second year. So there are essentially 5 quarterbacks just drafted in the first round alone. I'm not even talking about, I'm not throwing in Drew Lock, who became a starter. I'm not talking about Jalen Hurts. I'm not talking about any other. I'm talking first round quarterbacks. I even narrowed it down to first round quarterbacks who fit Bo Nix's description in that they played the vast majority of their rookie year. Because what Sean Payton is pointing to, in the more macro sense, there's a lot of examples. I'll give one that is near and dear to everyone's heart. Did you know that Patrick Mahomes threw 50 more touchdowns in year 2 than he did in his rookie season? That's amazing. Until you remember that Patrick Mahomes played 1 game in his rookie year. And you go for, that's the most drastic example. But think about how many rookie quarterbacks played half a season or less. And going into year 2, of course their numbers are going to be up. They're playing the entire year now. So I think there are a lot of examples that are kind of proving Sean Payton's point that actually don't have as much to do with Bo Nix as he would like it. I think he's generalizing a little bit. But he's like, who are the 3? I gave you the 3 just in the last 10 years. Pickett, Mac Jones, CJ Stroud. 2 more quarterbacks in Justin Herbert and Jameis Winston did not get better and did not get worse. And that's what I've been talking about with Bo Nix. I don't expect him to crater in year 2. But this idea that he's going to take this big step forward, and by extension, the Denver Broncos are going to take this big step forward, that's what I've been pushing back against. Statistically, it may be about the same. You may not see a lot of regression. But what are we talking about this Broncos team like? What are we saying about Bo Nix? Not me, but other people. Bo Nix in the next 2 years is going to be a top 5 quarterback in the league. The Denver Broncos are a Super Bowl contender. And we can all agree that Bo Nix is going to have a big say in whether that turns out to be true. And I think that there's much more evidence to say year 3 is a more telltale sign of what a young quarterback is going to be in his career than year 2. But it's not finding Sasquatch. I know you want to push back against that, and you want to put the kibosh on anybody talking about the idea of a sophomore slump because you don't want that negativity around and you want to defend your guy, and that's fine. But there are 12 quarterbacks in the last 10 years that fit the description of Bo Nix. And 3 of those 12 saw declines. 2 more were flat. So maybe in a more macro sense, Sean Payton is right. But this idea that a sophomore slump does not exist, perhaps the sophomore slump needs to be more looked at as anecdotal. And we use it's kind of a ubiquitous term. We use it all the time. And I appreciate the fact that Sean Payton is kind of dispelling that a little bit. But if we're going the most apples to apples comparison, a quarterback that played 4 games and is now the full-time starter in year 2 is not a direct comparison to Bo Nix. These other quarterbacks, Winston, Wentz, Murray, Herbert, Lawrence, Pickett, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Mac Jones, Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson, and Justin Fields. Those are quarterbacks who played the vast majority, 12 or more games in their rookie year, like Bo Nix did. And if I went a little bit deeper on this, you would see that completion percentage, it's a half of them go up, half of them go down. Quarterback rating, about half of them go up, half of them go down. But here's the most interesting thing that I found. And this certainly goes to my bigger point about the Denver Broncos this year. Of all the quarterbacks I just mentioned, some you may love for Bo Nix to be compared to, others you don't want any part of, and that's fine. I can't control who it is. These are the guys that are similar to Bo Nix in terms of how much they played their rookie year. But no matter how you feel about those quarterbacks, there is one thing that is a constant. Every single one of these quarterbacks have one thing in common in year 2. They didn't win more. Not a single one of the quarterbacks that had the success that Bo Nix, similar success to what Bo Nix had in year 1, got their team more wins in year 2. Now, some of the other ones did. Some of the ones like Bryce Young, nowhere to go but up. He had a better winning percentage. But the quarterbacks that had a winning record in their rookie year, Kenny Pickett, CJ Stroud, Mac Jones, not a single one of them saw their team's winning percentage in their starts go up in year 2. And therein lies my bigger argument with the Denver Broncos. Bo Nix may not really regress. In fact, I've said it's just going to look like he regressed because defenses are going to have some tricks up their sleeve that maybe they didn't have last year. But the idea that the Denver Broncos are going to take a step forward and be better than they were in year one with Bo Nix. That is the Sasquatch. To have the success that the Broncos had with the rookie quarterback and then follow it up with more success in year two, that is the Sasquatch. That is the thing you cannot find. The guys that lost a lot their rookie year, yeah, they won more. The guys that won a lot in their rookie year did not win more in year two. So Sean Payton is right. On a bigger scale, in a more general sense, the sophomore slump does not exist. But the idea that the progression just continues and Bo Nix is guaranteed to put up bigger numbers than he did in year one, and thusly the Denver Broncos are going to be a better team in year two record-wise than they were year one, that's what I can't find here. And that's been my bigger argument with this team. The idea that they're going to take that step that everyone in the national media seems to think they're going to take. I don't see it, and recent history doesn't back up that claim. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on that. We will stick with the Broncos coming up next, but talk about the joint practice today. Everything I saw, it was a great day for the Denver Broncos. We'll see if Jessica Mendoza of KKTV 11 agrees. She joins me next. Denver Broncos had their joint practice with the Arizona Cardinals today, and by most accounts, went pretty well. But I don't care about most accounts. I care about the account of Jessica Mendoza of KKTV 11 Sports, who is kind enough to join me now. If I can get our technology. Hi, Jessica. How are you?
Good. Technology's so fun, isn't it?
It is. So you are safely back here in Colorado Springs. Was it the triumphant victory for Denver that everyone is making it out to be?
Well, I can tell you about half of the story. So the problem there with all of the construction there at Broncos Park is that, we've got two fields going horizontally, and Bo Nix and the offense were on the field closest to us media, and then we've got these sidelines of players blocking what we can see for the defense. So I heard a couple things that happened over there. It sounded like it was a slow start for the defense today. Trey McBride, the former CSU Ram, had a couple big plays for the Cardinals, but for what we saw from the Broncos offense today, a really good day for Bo Nix. A lot of people are saying it was his best of training camp, and Ryan, I would have to agree for sure.
Can you confirm that he threw a no-look pass?
I couldn't tell. I can't tell where the guy's eyes are, but I definitely believe the defense when they say that, and very encouraging to hear something like that. So love to hear it.
Anybody else? I know we put everything through the lens of Bo Nix, but anybody else catch your eye while you were up there?
Yeah, so definitely nothing regarding the run game. I mean, the run game just stalled all day long. So not answering your question, but we won't be talking, unfortunately, about any of the running backs. But Devon Vele and Marvin Mims were like the two top receivers today. It felt like every time Bo Nix was targeting them, it was for a large gain, sometimes more than 20 yards. And it just felt like those connections were there. So really encouraging to see more from Devon Vele as that competition continues to heat up. And Marvin Mims, it was a couple weeks ago, he said he was comfortable with, just being a big piece in special teams and being on punt return. But now seeing him on the depth chart as the number 2 receiver and seeing him kind of back it up on the practice fields and also in the preseason game, I've been pretty surprised to see his role so far this summer. So unfortunately, as you probably heard, we're not going to see any more of him on Saturday, but potentially a little bit more for their third preseason game.
Just because you brought that up, I do want to talk about the wide receivers and the running backs with you, Jessica Mendoza. But let's talk about that. I guess, do you get where Sean Payton is coming from when it comes to not playing his starters, his ones, whatever you want to call it, the star players? Do you get the logic behind that?
A little bit. Personally, for me, when I'm watching some of these preseason games and I keep getting these updates on my phone of, so-and-so is hurt and is going to miss the rest of the season. This person has an injury from this preseason game. I think it really starts to, freak coaches and players and teams and fans out. So I do see that side. But I also feel like after what we saw in the first preseason game, especially from the starting offense, it definitely left everybody wanting more. And I don't feel like we quite were able to see what we wanted to in today's training camp, joint practice. So as much as, from a fan point of view, obviously we want to see a little bit more from the starters out there. But from Sean Payton's point of view, I think he was able to see enough today that, hey, we are, getting first downs or moving the chains, and they were able to score in the red zone periods. And that's ultimately something we weren't able to see in the Bay Area last weekend. So I do see his side for sure, and I think it's better to err on the side of safety.
And isn't there, I was talking about this at the beginning of the show, isn't there like a reasonable logic? Because what you say about us collectively wanting to see the first team offense and defense perform better than they did in San Francisco, but isn't there kind of a thought that it may not be better because of not because of Arizona or anything about the Denver Broncos' lack of talent or anything like that, but just to Sean Payton's point, the workload that this team has had, maybe our expectations would have to then be lower if they were to put out there, because this is 2 joint practices and 2 preseason games in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, so you're saying like maybe manage the potential panic that Broncos country would have if if the starting
Right.
offense didn't have
I'm
the right
right, right.
control.
I'm saying like what's better, that they don't play or that they play and it might be worse because they've had two joint practices and a preseason game.
Yeah, and I will say, like they take these joint practices very seriously. And Sean Payton did say he's had maybe 12 joint practices in his career, and this was the best one that he's seen. So he's obviously really liking what he's seen, and like you said, I think that's a good point to kind of protect the team from what could be this negative reaction to if they show up extremely exhausted. I have to say, Ryan, like I ain't no meteorologist, but it was so hot out there today. And I know you heard about what happened to Garrett Bowles.
Yeah.
You know, we all thought it was maybe heat stroke because it was so hot out there and the guys were just baking in the sun, you know, going through, you know, drills after drills. It didn't feel like there was a lot of break in today's practice. So, yeah, I do think you bring up a really good point there.
And Garrett Bowles, for those who have not heard, he was dealing with I don't want to call it an asthma attack, but some asthma related issues, but he'll be fine. So that's good news. Jessica Mendoza joining me from KKTV 11, fresh off of covering the Broncos joint practice with the Arizona Cardinals. The running back thing, I think even more so now, doesn't it become the storyline Saturday if we already know that the ones aren't playing, so that would put more emphasis on the running back competition. And now you have in a joint practice where everything went right for the Broncos, except for that. I mean, for me, that's going to be the number one thing. How about you?
Well, absolutely. And my first question was when he says the ones aren't going to play on Saturday, who are our Broncos ones in the running back room? I would
Mhm.
assume it's J.K. Dobbins and it's R.J. Harvey from what we've seen. But, you know, which running backs are going to get reps and touches on Saturday? I think that's going to be really telling because I think the ones, not the ones, but the ones who are playing on Saturday at Empower Field, that's to me, the ones who are out there that says that they haven't proven themselves to Sean Payton yet and that they're actively playing for a spot on this year's team. And like you mentioned on my show a few days ago, I do think that Jaleel McLaughlin could be a part of that. Definitely Blake Watson, Audric Estime. I mean, personally, I would be surprised if RJ Harvey, definitely J.K. Dobbins. I don't think we'll see him at all. But I think
Mhm.
the playing time of these guys Saturday will be very telling.
It just based on your what you've seen, or maybe just what you've heard. Take it whatever direction you want to. If I told you, okay, McLaughlin, Estime, Bidet, Watson, pick two to make the Broncos 53, where are you leaning right now?
I want to give Bidet a shot. I think we saw some really good things from him at points last season, and it's more about maybe that consistency, but they wouldn't need as much consistency from him if he were a part of this year's running backs room. And then I think Audric Estime, too. I think he still has the potential to be that kind of power back. I don't know. I just feel like we've had this picture of him that we just haven't really seen, be played out or come to fruition quite yet. I'm not giving up on him quite yet. And I
Mhm.
do think that, this year he would continue to not have too much pressure to, carry the Broncos on his back, so to speak. So it gives him another chance to continue to grow. I don't think that Sean Payton's quite ready to give up on him quite yet.
Well, it'll be maybe not interesting for the reasons we thought Saturday was going to be interesting, but certainly there is plenty to watch out for. And remind me again where I can watch that game, Jessica, on
On
Saturday?
KKTV 11 News, we also have a 30-minute pre-game preview show. And so if you tune in a little bit early, 30 minutes before the game starts, we'll have our preview show there as well.
Well, I'm going to do that. I ask you a Nuggets related question?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going through the most interesting games on the Nuggets schedule.
Hmm.
I have them going 82-0, just so you know. Um, but one of the games I saw that the Knicks are coming to Ball Arena
Nice.
on a Friday in what was it, March? Um, wouldn't that be a great night for there to be an olive branch extended to one Carmelo Anthony and have
Ooh,
a Carmelo Anthony night, the night that the Nuggets play the Knicks, the year that Carmelo goes into the Basketball Hall of Fame?
wow. I really love the idea. Do you think that Carmelo Anthony would be open to it? Do you think that'd be something he would want to do?
I think he should.
Hmm.
I think he should because he in the past, but you bring up a great point. I think that the Nuggets are certainly willing to honor him. I think even the fan base would applaud him more than what I'm hearing on my text line today. I think they would, acknowledge him. But I think there is very much well, Carmelo, the first step's on you, guy. Like, acknowledge that we were a big part of your career. I don't know. I don't know him well enough to know, but I think it would be a phenomenal stage for both sides to kind of come together along with the fans and say, all right, let's put all of this behind us and honor Carmelo Anthony. I think if they told him he was getting his jersey in the rafters, he would.
I think so. I mean, that would definitely sweeten the deal. I just feel like the last nugget I got from him was that he had a hurt feeling against the Denver Nuggets, right? So it's like, how much does he want to come back and be recognized and celebrated? But I do think when you mentioned the timing of it all, and just, I think it would be perfect. So I'm going to cross my fingers for that and hope it all works out. I'm going to mark my calendar now and just plan on it.
Well, I was hoping that you would take word with you up to Ball Arena and make it happen on my behalf, because I don't have that kind of power that you wield.
For sure. You know what? Yeah. You know what? I'll make it happen.
All right. Broncos joint practice victory is the topic du jour for you tonight on KK.
Yep, absolutely. 5:30 and 10 o'clock.
Check it out, Jessica. Always appreciate your time. Thanks for being my guinea pig here on the video chat. I think it went pretty well, and now this will be standard operating procedure.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
You bet. My pleasure. That is Jessica Mendoza of KKTV 11. See her tonight on KKTV 11. Repeating myself. Great insight there from Jessica after the joint practice today. Take a break. Have more Drive Time Sports after this. Thursday, 719-24-7, 1313. On the Carmelo thing, just wrapping that up with Tom says, you're right. Carmelo night would be the highlight of the Nuggets season. First time in sports history, a player gets their jersey retired. The crowd gets up and boos. It will be epic. Okay, well then, the one time I'm positive and I'm trying to bring people together, you guys are the negative one. Okay, that's fine. How about a hate Carmelo Anthony night when the Knicks visit? Would that be better? Pardon me for trying to heal the world. That's what I'm trying to do here. Curmudgeons. All of yous. The notion of a sophomore slump. And I do appreciate Sean Payton because he is very smart. And he's a historian of the game. And what he said today led me to think critically about the idea of a sophomore slump. And when it comes to quarterbacks, I at least say that we shouldn't make a sophomore slump something that we just say happens to everybody. It doesn't. I don't know that that's what we say, but it's always the conversation, to Sean Payton's point. Over the last 10 years, first-round quarterbacks, year one to year two, do usually fare better. But when I narrow down the data set, if you will, to quarterbacks who played a lot in their rookie year like Bo Nix did, it's a mixed bag at best. And to his question about show me the three, again, Kenny Pickett, CJ Stroud, Mac Jones. And then there were two more quarterbacks in Justin Herbert and Jameis Winston who you would have to squint to be able to find the difference between their performances in year one and year two. And I'm just presenting that. I'm just saying it exists. Because Sean Payne's saying it exists like Bigfoot exists. From the 719, sophomore slump or not, Jaden Daniels and Washington are going to have a hard time matching what they did last year. Most likely won't be regression either. I actually think that you can, in many ways, apply what I'm saying about the Broncos and apply it to the Commanders. I don't think the Commanders are going to go to the Super Bowl this year. I do think some of what Jaden Daniels did last year, it won't look as good. I think that it's reasonable to put everything I'm saying about Bo Nix on the Commanders. But also understanding that Jaden Daniels and the Commanders are starting off ahead of where the Broncos are. With Jaden Daniels, we're talking about already being considered one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league and taking Washington in the NFC Championship. With the Broncos, we're talking about Bo Nix having a good year and the Broncos sneaking in as the 7th seed in the AFC. But I think you can look at both of those situations and reasonably expect both quarterbacks and both teams by extension to not take whatever the next step is. So I think what I'm saying, you could take that and apply it to Jaden Daniels. It's just that the next step for Jaden Daniels is going to a Super Bowl. And the next step for him as a player might be putting up an MVP caliber season. But I think there are some similarities. This coming in from Chris. I mostly agree with you. I'll take it, Chris. Thank you. The last time the Broncos got this much national media preseason hype, they were, quote, a quarterback away from winning the Super Bowl. What happened? They traded for Russell Wilson, were deemed Super Bowl winners before the season and won 5 or 6 games. Let's see this team in regular season action before the Super Bowl talk starts. And it's fine to be optimistic, but you can't throw out the idea. And it's even fine if you want to predict that the Broncos are going to the Super Bowl. But just you have to expect some pushback and you have to be able to defend your position. That's all I'm asking here. Because I'm going to push back against it. But you bring up a great point about other times in recent history in which the Broncos were talked about this way. I'll give you an even, more overarching example. The idea that the Broncos got their guy, not that they're a quarterback away from a Super Bowl, but that they got the quarterback to lead them to the Super Bowl. Russell Wilson would be one. Case Keenum was another. Drew Lock was another. Now, Bo Nix might turn out to be better than all of them. In fact, I think Bo Nix is going to be better than all of them. But throughout recent Broncos history, those words, "we got our guy," have preceded a season in which the Denver Broncos disappointed. But what would this team do to disappoint? Miss the playoffs entirely? I mean, they were a 7 seed. It could go either way. Maybe they're the 8 seed. Is that disappointing? Is that wildly disappointing? I think for a lot of people it would be. But if this team doesn't go to the Super Bowl, should you be disappointed? Should the season be a failure? Absolutely not. If they don't win the division, shouldn't be categorized as a complete and utter failure. But what I'm pushing back against is like the more this kind of hype starts and the more of this that happens, then the more them not winning the division or them not winning a Super Bowl is going to be a disappointment. By my standard, if they could just get into the playoffs, that is a success. That means you didn't really regress. You kept the level. Now Bo Nix goes into an all-important year 3 with the chance to take a step forward. And we'll leave it on this note from the 719. Those no-look passes from Bo Nix were probably an accident. I wasn't talking to you, Deeds. I was talking to that squirrel over there. Maybe one of those kind of situations. Good conversation. Appreciate it. I have Air Force Women's Soccer broadcast to do up at the Academy. So I will leave you in the capable hands of the Infinity Sports Network with the JR Sport Brief. You will hear that. My thanks to Jessica Mendoza and Jonas Fielberg for being my guests. And again, thank you for the interaction and your patronage. And thanks to Ray behind the scenes for making all of this go today. He was a huge help on that. We'll enjoy our nights collectively, separately. I'll be calling soccer. You'll be doing your thing. We'll reconvene tomorrow at 3 here on Extra Sports 1300.
The Brewers can't be stopped, or can they? I'm Kate Constable here, help you beat the books with the BetMGM Network. Milwaukee's riding